Hello guys, Nat Blue here, and today we are going to do something a little bit different. So, over the past few months, I've had a few people ask me if I have autism. And if I do, I'm okay with that. But because of that, and to spread a little bit of awareness about autism, we are going to take a few autism assessments online. Now, this is not a diagnostic assessment. This is just to determine whether or not you should get professionally tested. So this first test, I prefer to do things on my own rather than with others. I slightly agree here. Depends on what it is. I think a lot of these questions are going to depend on what the situation is. Question two, I prefer doing things the same way. For instance, my morning routine or trip to the supermarket. I agree with this, slightly agree with this. There are some days that I do things differently to get out of my comfort zone, but for the most part, I'm a very I'm a big fan of routines. I find myself becoming strongly absorbed in something, even obsessional. Definitely agree. I get obsessed with things pretty quickly. I'm very sensitive to noise and will wear earplugs or cover my ears in certain situations. Slightly agree. I don't wear earplugs or anything. I am a little bit sensitive to noise. I don't like loud noises. I listen to my music pretty quietly. Stuff like that. Sometimes people say I am being rude, even though I think I'm being polite. I agree there. I find it easy to imagine what characters from a book might look like. Slightly disagree. I don't think I'm good at imagining their faces and stuff. I find it easy to talk in groups of people. Slightly agree here. But that's more so I've had training with it. So I have a very, my job requires a lot of discussion with groups. I'm more interested in finding out about things than people. I agree there. I like, I mean, unless it's like historical people. I find numbers, dates, and strings of information fascinating. Slightly agree there. I prefer nonfiction books and films to fiction. Definitely disagree. I'm a big fiction guy. I find it upsetting if my daily routine is upset or changed. I definitely agree there. If I make a plan in my head and I can't execute that plan, it messes up my entire day. It's difficult for me to understand other people's facial expressions and body language. Slightly agree. Sometimes I'm okay at it. I don't have any problems making small talk with new people. Definitely disagree. I'm very bad at small talk. I notice very small changes in a person's appearance. Slightly disagree. It depends on the day. When I was young, I used to play lots of let's pretend or imaginary games. I definitely agree with that. That was a lot of my playtime when I was a kid. I like collecting information about things I'm interested. Definitely agree. I collect too much information. I read a lot of like synopsises about uh, comic books. I don't read a lot of comic books anymore because it's just a tough hobby to keep up with. They release way too many comic books. So I'll read up on what's happening in the different comic book universes. I consume an insane amount of content about Dungeons and Dragons, maybe too much. I watch videos and stuff every day about how to be a better player, be a better DM, play different monsters certain ways, about different systems. So I've been watching some videos about like Monster of the Week and stuff like that. I like meeting new people, slightly disagree. I'm not a huge fan of meeting new people. People close to me say I talk about the same things repeatedly. I agree with that. I find it easy to work out what people are thinking or feeling just by looking at their facial expressions. Slightly disagree there. New social situations make me feel anxious. Definitely agree. I get anxious about social situations frequently. It's important to me to carefully plan any activities I'm going to do. Slightly agree there. I at least need to know what time I'm going to do it and when I'm going to do it, who I'm going with, stuff like that. Past that, I don't do a lot of planning. I have friends that will plan out like this is the minute we're going to leave, this is when we're going to be finished with the activity, stuff like that. I just want to know when I'm showing up, who I'm going with. If I need to bring anything, I over plan for bringing stuff sometimes. I find it hard to work out what people's intentions are. Agree. I would find it really hard to play imaginary games with children. I'm going to slightly agree here. I did play a lot of imaginary games when I was a kid, but I feel like since I've gotten older, I'm a little bit worse at it. I'm a good diplomat and can ease difficult social or work situations. Slightly agree there. That's another work thing. I've had to go through training for like handling difficult conversations and stuff like that. I am often the last person to understand a joke. I'm going to disagree there. I like doing things spontaneously. Slightly agree. Like I said, I like to know what time I'm going to do something. But other than that, I'm okay with a little bit of spontaneity. If I am interrupted doing something, I find it hard to get back to what I was doing beforehand. I agree there. I notice patterns in things all the time. Slightly disagree. Sometimes I'll notice a pattern. I have some very strong interest in getting upset if I can't pursue them. Definitely agree there. The worst thing about Dungeons and Dragons and other TTRPGs is the scheduling, and when scheduling falls through, it messes up my entire day. I can tell if someone I am talking to is getting bored. Slightly disagree. Okay, so I got a 22 out of 30. Based on your results, there's a strong probability that you are autistic. Based on your results, there's a strong probability that you are autistic. Please remember that this result is only indicative and does not form a formal diagnosis. However, people with scores like you often benefit from a comprehensive assessment to provide an official recognized diagnosis. So, this is where the problem lies. And we'll talk about this a little bit later, too. This is a UK website, but the assessments cost £2,250 on average. Or this assessment from Clinical Partners UK costs £2,250. From what I've heard in the US, an autism assessment can cost like $3,000. I can't be spending $3,000 on something like that. But if autism is affecting your life greatly, I would recommend trying to find a way to pay that money. The problem is a lot of insurance companies do not cover autism assessments. So just to make sure that the information is correct, we're going to do a couple more assessments. So this is psychcentral.com. So we're going to go through this test also. I like to do things the same way most of the time. I would rather hang out alone rather than go to a party with friends some of the time. I'm not a big party guy, but sometimes I understand I'm supposed to interact with people. I tend to notice small details that others don't most of the time. When I'm reading a story, I have a hard time imagining what the characters might look like or figuring out the character's intentions some of the time. I found myself more strongly I find myself drawn more strongly to people than to things or solitary activities. No. I prefer a solitary activity like video games. I enjoy social gatherings and or find social situations easy. No. I don't find them easy ever. And I normally don't enjoy social interactions. On many occasions I've been told what I've said is impolite even though I think it is polite. That's some of the time. I frequently find it hard to keep a conversation going some of the time. I find it difficult to imagine what it would be like to be someone else some of the time. I focus more on the whole picture rather than small details. I'm going to say never there. I normally focus on the small details. I tend to have very strong interest and get upset if I can't pursue them most of the time. Like I said, the D&D cancellations is a big one there. When I talk, it isn't always easy for others to get a word in some of the time. I try my best to let people say their piece. When someone is talking to me, I find it easy to read between the lines, understand their true feelings or intentions. I'm going to say some of the time there. Almost never. It's something I struggle with sometimes. I find it easy to understand what someone is thinking or feeling just by looking at their face some of the time. I often notice small sounds when others don't most of the time. Numbers, dates, or strings of information fascinate me. I guess with the small sounds, it depends how engrossed I am in something. If I'm like focused on something, sometimes I don't hear anything. Numbers, dates, or string of information fascinate me. Yeah. So mostly dates and strings of information. I'm not a huge numbers guy. I can easily recognize patterns and things all the time, some of the time. New situations make me anxious and nervous most of the time. I prefer reading books about nonfiction subjects like dinosaurs. No, I'm not a big dinosaur guy. I find it hard to figure out other people's intentions some of the time. Good results. 22 out of 40. Scoring in this range means it may be a good idea to monitor your symptoms and keep track of the severity of these behaviors and when they are present. Further evaluation is typically recommended when these behaviors begin to interfere your ability to navigate life, school, and relationships. Okay, so this is saying it wouldn't be a bad idea to get an assessment, but I shouldn't worry about it unless it starts interfering with my life, which makes a lot of sense to me. We're going to hop into one more. This test looks like it's a little bit longer than the others, so hang in with me for a bit. I want to be able to tell people when this subject gets brought up that I took multiple tests to see uh, what the results looked like. So I prefer to do things with others rather than on my own. I'm going to slightly agree there. It depends on, because like if I'm walking on my house or something, I want somebody else to help me. But if I'm like trying to figure out a campaign setting for D&D or something, I want to do it on my own. I prefer to do things the same way over and over again. I'm going to definitely agree there. If I try to imagine something, I find it very easy to create a picture in my mind. Slightly disagree. I mean, sometimes. I frequently get so strongly absorbed in one thing that I lose sight of other things. Definitely agree. I often notice small sounds when others do not. Definitely agree. I usually notice car number plates or similar strings of information. No. Other people frequently tell me what I've said is impolite, even though I think it is polite. Slightly agree. I've gotten better at it. When I'm reading a story, I can easily imagine what the characters might look like. Slightly disagree. I am fascinated by dates. It depends. In like a historical context, yes. If I'm learning about history, yes. In a social group, I can easily keep track of several different people's conversations. Slightly disagree. I find social situations easy. Definitely disagree. I put a lot of effort into them, and a lot of the time, if I'm socializing for a long period of time, I leave just tired. I tend to notice details that others don't. Slightly agree. I would rather go to a library than a party. Definitely agree. I find making stories up easy. Yes. I find myself drawn more strongly to people than to things. Slightly disagree. I tend to have very strong interest when I get upset, which I get upset about if I can't pursue. Definitely agree. I enjoy social chit chat. If it's chit chat, I definitely disagree. If it's just conversation, I'm okay. But if it goes down to being like small talk, I don't like it. When I talk, it isn't always easy for others to get a word in. Slightly agree. I am fascinated by numbers. Slightly disagree. Like I said, I like dates and information. Numbers just aren't as fascinating to me. When I'm reading a story, I find it difficult to walk out the character's intentions. Slightly disagree. I understand intentions a lot of the time in fiction and stuff. I don't particularly enjoy reading fiction. Definitely disagree. I love fiction. I find it hard to make new friends. Definitely agree. I notice patterns in things all the time. Slightly disagree. I wouldn't say all the time. I would rather go to the theater than a museum. Disagree. I like museums because there's not as much expectation of participation. So, depending on the theater, sometimes they want people to interact in the audience and stuff. I prefer the just walking around a museum experience. It does not upset me if my daily routine is disturbed. Definitely disagree. I frequently find that I don't know how to keep a conversation going. Slightly agree. I find it easy to read between the lines when someone is talking to me. Slightly disagree. I usually concentrate more on the whole picture rather than the small details. Slightly disagree. I'm not good at remembering phone numbers. Definitely disagree. I don't usually notice small changes in a situation or a person's appearance. Slightly agree. Sometimes I do, but normally it takes me a couple of days at least. I know how to tell if someone listening to me is getting bored. Slightly disagree. I find it easy to do more than one thing at once. Slightly agree. I enjoy multitasking, but sometimes I'm not very good at it. When I talk on the phone, I'm not sure when it's my turn to speak. Slightly agree there. I enjoy doing things spontaneously. Slightly agree. Like I said, I like to plan, but I like a little bit of spontaneity. I'm often the last to understand the point of the joke. Slightly disagree. I find it easy to work out what someone is thinking or feeling just by looking at their face. Disagree. If there's an interruption, I can switch back to what I was doing very quickly. Disagree. I'm good at social chit chat. Definitely disagree. People often tell me that I keep going on and on about the same thing. Agree. I've talked about D&D too much in this video, honestly. When I was young, I used to enjoy playing games involving pretending with other children. Definitely agree. I would like to collect information, or I like to collect information about the categories of things: plants, birds, trains, plants, plant, plant. I said plants twice. Car, bird, train, plant. I got thrown off there. I agree with this. Definitely agree with this. I'm really into different animals like penguins. I know a lot about penguins. I know a decent amount about raccoons, ostriches. Um, I know too much about D&D. Like I said, I consume an insane amount of content about D&D and a couple of other TTRPGs. So I would say I like to collect information. I find it difficult to imagine what it would be like to be someone else. Slightly agree. I like to plan any activities I participate in carefully. I wouldn't say carefully, so we're going to slightly disagree there. I enjoy social occasions. Disagree. I find it difficult to work out people's intentions. Slightly disagree. Or slightly agree. Then I enjoy social situations or social occasions. One, it depends on what the social occasion is. If it's a couple of people, I normally enjoy it a decent amount, but if it's like a larger group, I don't like doing it. New situations make me anxious. Definitely agree. I enjoy meeting new people. Definitely disagree. I'm a good diplomat. Slightly agree. But like I said earlier, it's just a work thing. I'm not very good at remembering people's date of birth. Agree. I find it very easy to play games with children that involve pretending. Slightly disagree. There's 2 pages for this one because I think this is about emotion more so. I can easily tell if someone else wants to enter a conversation. Slightly disagree. I prefer animals to humans. Definitely agree. I try to keep up with current trends in fashion. Slightly disagree. I find it difficult to explain to others that I understand easily when they don't understand it the first time. Slightly agree. I dream most nights. Slightly agree. I really enjoy caring for other people. Slightly disagree. I'm not a big fan of somebody relying on me like that. I try to solve my own problems rather than discussing them with others. Definitely agree. I find it hard to know what to do in a social situation. Agree there. I am at my best first thing in the morning. Slightly disagree. People often tell me that I went too far in driving my point home in a discussion. Slightly agree. It doesn't bother me too much if I am late meeting a friend. Disagree. Friendships and relationships are just too difficult, so I tend to not bother with them. Definitely agree. So I feel like I have my friends already, and honestly, I could put more effort into my friendships. There's a lot of people that I go long periods of time without talking to. I would never break a law, no matter how minor. Definitely disagree. I often find it difficult to judge if something is rude or polite. Agree. In a conversation, I tend to focus on my own thoughts rather than on what my listener might be thinking. Definitely agree. I prefer practical jokes to verbal humor. Definitely disagree. I enjoy verbal humor. I live life for today rather than for the future. Slightly disagree. I plan things ahead. When I was a child, I enjoyed cutting up worms to see what would happen. Slightly agree, but that doesn't make me a psychopath. You just want to see what's inside the worm. I can pick up quickly if someone says one thing but means another. Slightly disagree. I tend to have very strong opinions about morality. Disagree. I wouldn't say strong opinions. It is hard for me to see why some things upset people so much. Slightly agree. I find it easy to put myself in someone else's shoes. Slightly disagree. I think that good manners are the most important thing a parent can teach their child. Disagree. I wouldn't say most important. I like to do things on the spur of the moment. Slightly disagree. I like to plan it ahead, but then, like, if I'm going to, like, the mall or something, I plan what time I'm going to get to the mall. I don't plan what I'm doing at the mall, if you know what I mean. I'm quick to spot when someone in a group is feeling awkward or uncomfortable. I missed one, but let's disagree there. I'm good at predicting how someone will feel. Disagree there. If I say something that someone else is offended by, I think that that's their problem, not mine. Agree. If someone asked me if I liked their haircut, I would reply truthfully, even if I didn't like it. Agree. I can always see why someone should have felt offended by a remark. I can't always see. I'm reading these too fast. Um, yeah, let's agree there. People often tell me I'm very unpredictable. Disagree. A lot of people tell me that I'm predictable. So I don't get the unpredictable often. I do sometimes, which is why I didn't definitely disagree. I enjoy being the center of attention at any social gathering. Disagree. Seeing people cry doesn't really upset me. Agree. I don't know what to do when they're crying, but it doesn't upset me. I enjoy having discussions about politics. Disagree. I'm okay with it, but I'm not a huge fan of politics. I'm very blunt, which some people take to be rudeness, even though this is unintentional. Agree. I don't tend to find social situations confusing. Disagree. I would say definitely disagree. Other people tell me I am good at understanding how they are feeling and what they are thinking. Disagree. When I talk to people, I tend to talk about their experiences rather than my own. Disagree. I'm one of those people that doesn't understand when it's okay to give like anecdotal uh, things about myself during a conversation. So if we're talking about something, I'm probably going to mention something that I can relate to, just because that's how I understand conversations, and I know that's not what you're supposed to do. I'm trying to get better about it. It upsets me to see animals in pain. Agree. I am able to make decisions without being influenced by people's feelings. Yeah. I can't relax until I've done everything I'd planned to do that day. Definitely agree. I can easily tell if someone else is interested or bored in what I'm saying. Disagree. I don't get upset if I see someone suffering on news programs. Oh, I do get upset. Slow down a bit, man. Friends usually talk to me about their problems as they say I am very understanding. Disagree there. Let's say definitely disagree. I can sense if I am intruding even if the other person doesn't tell me. Disagree. I often start new hobbies but quickly become bored with them and move on to something else. Definitely agree. People sometimes tell me that I've gone too far with teasing. Slightly agree. I would be too nervous to go on a big roller coaster. Definitely disagree. I like roller coasters. Other people often say that I am insensitive, though I don't see why. Slightly agree. I would say, though I don't see why, is why, or I don't always see why. I normally know why people think I'm insensitive, but people do say I'm insensitive sometimes. If I see a stranger in a group, I think that is up to them to make an effort to join in. Yeah, I agree. I usually stay emotionally attached when watching a film, detached when watching a film. Disagree now. So, the older I've gotten, the more emotional I can get in movies. I like to be very organized in day to day life and often make a list of chores I have to do. I agree there. I can tune into how someone else feels rapidly and intuitively. Disagree. I don't like to take risks. Agree. I can easily work out what another person might want to talk about. Disagree. I can tell if someone is masking their true emotion. Disagree. Before making a decision, I always weigh the pros and cons. Definitely agree. I think this goes a little bit too far sometimes. So if I'm picking like a restaurant I want to DoorDash to my house, a lot of the time, I'm considering like, oh, this restaurant has a better selection of pop than this other restaurant, and it takes me a very long time to decide what I want to DoorDash, honestly, because I'm always weighing the pros of one restaurant against the pros of another restaurant. I don't consciously walk out the rules of social situations. Slightly agree. It depends on the situation. So, like, if I'm talking about something at work, I might walk out the rules. I'm good at predicting what someone will do. Slightly disagree. I tend to get emotionally involved in a friend's problem. No. I can usually appreciate the other person's viewpoint even if I don't agree with it. I'm going to slightly disagree there. Let's get our results for this guy. Okay, so if you score 32 or more, 80% of autism patients score 32 or more. So I got a 35 on the autism spectrum quotient. Quotient. So that means, I mean, there's a decent chance 35 out of 50, a lot of people on the spectrum would have that. Empathy quotient? Quotient? I should know how to pronounce this. I've seen this word before. I got a 4. Most autism patients score 30 or less out of 80. And I got a 4, which might not be good. I think 4 out of 80, when 80% of people on the spectrum score 30 or less, isn't great. I wish that they would, that this website had more information about what that kind of stuff meant. But the main reason I did this is not for me to get a formal diagnosis. I am not going to get a formal diagnosis. I think I'm a very high functioning guy, even if I do have autism. I'm not saying I do have autism, but I think I'm a very high functioning guy. A lot of the reason I did this is just for awareness. I know it's not Autism Awareness Month this month, it was a few months ago, but more so if you are concerned that you have autism and it is negatively impacting your life, so making social situations too difficult, these tests are a good way to determine whether or not you should go see a psychologist to get formally tested. I did want to talk about a few of the pros and cons of getting an actual autism diagnosis. So I've been looking into this. A bunch of the pros are you will understand yourself better. So you'll understand, like, oh, this is why I feel like this. This is why I think like this. And it will give better evidence for like friends, family. Um, there are things, so like school and work, you might be able to get accommodations at school or work. You might be able to get some support. But support is also a con because as an adult, it is not as easy to get support for autism as it might be um, while you're still in school and everything. The cons, the big one is the cost. Like I said, in the US, it's like $3,000 to get an autism assessment. It's 2,250 in the UK. So that's a lot of money to spend on something that might not be true. So a big issue is if you spend the money for the autism assessment and you don't have autism, you're still out that $3,000. They're not going to refund it just because you don't have autism. A lot of the time, other mental illnesses and things along those lines can present with symptoms of autism. So, another issue that people have is they'll get this formal autism diagnosis, but it turns out it's just a small part of a bigger problem. So, you have a different diagnosis that hasn't been made that explains the autism. So there might be something else going on there that you might miss if you just hyper focus on the autism assessment. There's a lot of stigma around autism. So a lot of the time, I think this is getting better, but a lot of the time people might view you differently. So that's something you might want to consider. I mean, I don't really care how people think about me, but it's something that should be considered. Um, a big con here is it does make a few things harder to do. So if you're trying to immigrate to another country, adopt a kid, get a like foster care license, that is something you would need to consider, because if you get this diagnosis, they might be able to say that you don't have the mental fortitude to take care of a child, or that you can't immigrate to a country because they are only looking for people without this diagnosis. So there are some countries where the immigration process is just incredibly difficult already, and getting a formal autism diagnosis is just going to make that harder. So if you are looking to get like a foster care license, if you're looking to adopt a kid, I would definitely not recommend getting diagnosed, as long as you are um, functioning. If you're not functioning very well and you believe you have autism, throw everything I said out the window and go see a doctor, because they might be able to help you, maybe get you into a therapist that can help you with some coping mechanisms, stuff like that. So just go and see a doctor if your life is too negatively impacted. And then another thing is, if you're in like a custody case, this might also be seen as a negative, that a former spouse or something might use against you. So overall, I'm happy that I did this. It does make me think there might be more going on than I would even like to admit. To be honest, I'm still in the denial phase of this. But I am not going to be going to a doctor for a formal diagnosis, because I believe I function well enough to not need that. So I hope you guys did like this video. If you did, you can leave a like. Um, Other than that, I hope everybody is having a great day. And until next time, peace.